Welcome to the Wordy Pair Podcast, your go-to hub for all things writing, world building, and the occasional dive into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We're breaking down the barriers between you and your next great story. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just scribbling your first sentences, we've got something for you. We'll be discussing everything from crafting compelling characters to dissecting the good, the bad, and the downright bizarre in the world of fiction. Okay, this script says you guys are eccentric. Isn't that just a 3-syllable word for weird? No offense. So, whether you're in need of inspiration, a good laugh, or just a couple of weirdos to keep you company on your writing journey, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Wordy Pair Podcast.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Wordy Pair Podcast. As always, I'm Rudy.
And I'm Justin.
And we got stuck in anime world again. We're gonna talk about Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, and there's nothing you can do to stop us, other than turn this podcast off. It wouldn't technically stop us, but it would stop you from having to hear it.
Vampires have bloodlust, we have anime lust, so
this whole movie was about not having bloodlust. Or at least suppressing
it. It really was, wasn't it?
It was. Like, there was not a single vampire in the movie that succumbed to bloodlust.
Oh, you're right. Even good old Carmilla, a staple of the...
Yeah, she didn't make it that far.
Yeah.
She got close, but she didn't make it.
Yeah, we'll get to Carmilla.
Well, I mean, we'll have to eventually. So this is the second Vampire Hunter D movie.
Yes, and unfortunately
it came
the
out
last...
in 2000. Well, probably unfortunately. I feel like if they had...
There might be more, but...
No. I mean, I'm saying this. There were 15 years between the first one and the second one. Now I want you to imagine what a Vampire Hunter D movie would look like if it were made in 2015.
All right, fair enough.
There we go. I mean, this one, and you know, it's even worse than most anime comparisons because they made some bizarre artistic choices in this one that I think are worth talking about, such as the idea of recording the original voice track in English,
which it had some problems, definitely.
I mean, it had a lot of little problems.
Mostly Dee's left hand.
Mostly. But kind of everybody kind of yammered. People were in yap mode for this, and I don't understand why. That's not how movie scripts are supposed to work. You're supposed to tighten that shit.
Let's lay that one out there. Let's just point out that after we watched the movie, I was confused because it had been so long since I'd seen it that I was sure I was remembering things differently. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure I saw the Japanese version.
You probably did
back in the day.
Yeah.
I need to confirm that with a friend of mine, but I'm pretty sure we were watching a fan sub or something because I did not remember the dialogue going the way it did.
Well, I mean, he could have just bought a Japanese copy of the DVD. So quick history lesson: Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust was originally animated in Japan, but the original voice track was recorded in California in English. And when the movie released in Japan, in theaters, it was released with the English voice track with Japanese subtitles. It was only later that a Japanese voice track was produced for the purpose of the DVD and later, hard media iterations of the movie. So, like, according to some of the stuff I read, one of the major creatives in charge of this thing was like, well, this is like 12,000 AD, so everybody will be speaking English anyway. So
that's funny.
I mean, it is. It's kind of true. I mean, like it's not an entirely false statement. English is the lingua franca of a lot of the world, but at the same time, the quality of the English voice actors was, while their acting was decent, they were given, I think, a lot of leeway to chatter in scenes of a movie where visual splendor was on full display, and to have this visual splendor scene unfolding in front of you and hear some guy muttering about God knows what kind of destroys the effect.
Yeah, so to put it more bluntly, Dee's left hand had all these filler lines in the English version where you didn't see the hand itself, you just heard his voice, but he would be talking over scenes that, as I was watching it, I could imagine that the Japanese version would have no dialogue there, and you're just supposed to be watching and enjoying the visual display and it's that whole matter of like Western directors not understanding subtlety.
Well, some do. I mean, this is something that a competent Western director could have dealt with and said
not in the anime world.
No, not
in the anime world. It seems like nobody understands the purpose of subtle scenes.
Well, no, I mean that's not entirely true. There were it's a comedy, but Full Metal Panic Fumofu was really good at not overstepping its bounds.
Okay, but to be fair, when you're doing a comedy, you have to have a sense of timing for it to actually be funny.
Sure.
But
they did it
excellently. I can understand why they would understand subtlety a little better doing comedy. But
which sounds counterintuitive, right? That the comedy people are better at subtlety than the action sweeping fantasy adventure people, but apparently they are.
I mean, subtlety is about timing, and
true.
Boy, was the time. I mean, the lines too. It was all filler dialogue where it was just the hand was saying stuff just so that there wasn't a quiet scene.
We have this phenomenon now. We have people who are YouTubers who they just chatter about nothing for hours and hours and hours. The term I believe is yapping, and that's exactly what the hand was doing. It was like talk to the hand, but in reverse.
Yeah, hand to the talk.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really if you were the director of that film, what you would do is you would let him chatter, and then you would cut that track out of the audio for the final cut. Like that's what an insane person would do. I would hope, but apparently not.
Well, I suspect that some of that was in the script that he was given too. I really suspect that this was a writing thing where it's like, I'm going to write some more dialogue for the scene because it just seems like there should be more lines here. And
then Yoshitaka Amano is just like, he raises one finger and then we cut away from him.
So Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust continued the sort of visual splendor thing that the original
beautiful movie, like just gorgeous animation.
Yeah, maybe, and the story was based off of the seventh book, I believe.
Third book.
Oh no, third book. No, seventh one was the one we discussed last time.
Yeah. Well, half the story was based off the third book, and then the rest came from somewhere else that we're not sure about.
Yeah, a little bit more than half the story. The ending of the movie was entirely made up by the director and possibly
we don't know that.
We don't know who came up with the very end of it, but we know that Carmilla doesn't exist outside the movie. That was we looked that up.
Did we?
Yeah, we looked that up. Carmilla was not. And if she was, then the person who provided that information needs to update their 90s website, which actually can't be a 90s website because the movie was made in 2000. So
I mean,
the point is, the point is that it was mostly based off of that third book. A lot of the things that happened in the movie happened in the third book. They kind of happened much more swiftly. The first movie did the same thing, though. A lot of the events that took place came about a lot quicker than they did in the book. So,
I mean, it's fairly natural to condense a novel-length book into a 90-minute movie. That's pretty normal. It has to be done, right? Like the rule of thumb that I've heard about is that for a screenplay, one page of screenplay accounts for about a minute. And if you think about a novel and then converting that novel to the screenplay, you probably make it even longer converting the novel directly to screenplay. And that means that you're going to need to cut even more. So a 200-page novel, say, getting, accounts for about 3.5 hours plus some if you convert it to a screenplay. So you got to cut a lot of content.
There's like a fine line between, there's two opposite ends to that. There's cutting too much out, and then there's rushing it to keep more in. And you have to find a balance between those two. You have to kind of figure out where, because the bell curve isn't necessarily, you're not necessarily looking for the center there. You might be looking for more one way or the other.
And at different parts of the movie, you might need to move that slider around a little bit.
Yeah. The book, it was about halfway through the book that we had the scene where the vampire is resting in his portable hotel thing, and Dee has to try and figure out a way to open the door. And that was actually it was a much longer scene in the book than it was in the movie. Sure. But it also, the movie got there, like, it was like the first thing that happened after Dee showed up was that it showed him investigating this booby-trapped portable lounge for the vampire.
Well, it was. Are you talking about the big building that they?
Yeah, the big building that was protected by all the eye lasers.
Because the building didn't seem to be portable itself. It seemed like he had a carriage inside that building and then left with the carriage for whatever reason.
That was another thing. The book actually explained it as being being like a magical device that vampires can carry with them. So that was actually something that
it's like a
he
capsule
had brought
house
with him. Yeah. So a couple of it's Dragon Ball. A couple of differences though, but it got there really, really quickly in the movie. That was very early on, and it must have been about halfway through the book.
To give a good example, let's go a little bit further back to the beginning. The scene in the movie where Dee is kind of in that standoff to take the job was well paced and went at a reasonable rate and had good dialogue that wasn't over yappy. Like that first scene with Dee taking the job. Yeah. And the guy there's a couple of things going on in that scene. There's the people that are taking aim at Dee because they're not sure that he's going to be, peaceful. There's the guy who's first starting to negotiate the deal, who is, I believe, the what's her face's brother. And then there's, the father having to cut in when Dee is like, it may be that when I get there, she's already gone. What do you want me to do then? Right? Like, that scene was really well done. And the pacing was good. But, clearly someone had their head on straight at some point during this production. It's just that, it seems like somebody decided, let's add a bunch of random words here because we don't want things to just be quiet and let the viewer enjoy the view.
Yeah. Possibly one of the issues of a voice actor just wanting to have more lines in a role, which I guess asking is okay, but I feel like people should be less inclined to do that when you already have a script ready.
There are certainly cases where, an actor can ad-lib something and it's fantastic, or they can add something and it's fantastic, but it is the job of the director to put a nix on when that's not the case.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just want to be quiet and see the wilderness unfurl in front of you and not have some guy yammering about. I don't even remember what he was yammering about. He just was yammering.
Yeah, because it wasn't really any important dialogue. Like that scene with the giant sand manta rays.
It was like a schizophrenic mumbling to himself.
Yeah, and in the books, that the left hand is usually very, very quiet and just occasionally says something that makes most of the time it makes people wonder if it was Dee that said that or if they're just hearing things.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where if you compare it to the first movie, the hand face thing was a little sarcastic but fairly dignified, and it wasn't just yammering randomly in the first movie. When he said something, it was because something important was happening that he had input on.
And to be fair, in the books, it is kind of a sarcastic little creature, but it's not a rambling, endlessly yapping creature. Usually, there's very little dialogue that comes from that hand in all of the books.
Right.
The scene with the manta rays, the sand manta rays.
Yes.
It was such a great scene, animation-wise and visually. But
yes,
it was. I think it was it felt like it was entirely ruined because that whole scene, the hand was talking through everything. It did not stop.
Oh man, are we going to jump here? Oh man, I don't think I'm ready for this. Oh, watch out for that thing! Here it comes! Oh, watch out! I'm going to get. It was like that. Yeah.
It was really, really
pretty
dumb.
Bad. And like,
that was a scene where it should have made one comment about how they shouldn't do this, and then Dee just goes for it, and that's it. There shouldn't have been any more commentary after that.
Like at most there should have been like an when Dee jumps and then cut. No more sounds from the hand as Dee navigates this treacherous area. Right. I would have allowed that much, but no more.
Yeah, and it kind of doesn't make sense either, because we can give some leeway for characterization in an anime of a bit character, and the hand is kind of a bit character for the most part, but the hand isn't really afraid of much of anything in the books. I mean, there's one of the books.
No, I mean in the first movie, like Dee is unconscious. That thing is coming to attack Dee while Dee is unconscious. The hand isn't like, oh geez, what do I do? He's not, Rick and Mortying it. He's like,
he's more like friggin' A. I guess I'll help out.
He sees the thing. He starts to eat some dirt. He sucks in the monster. Game over.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how it goes. I mean, the book that we talked about last week, there was a great scene where Dee is in this magic field, and the hand is. He's just like, hey, do you want to take care of this for me? And the hand is just like, oh yeah, sure, I can handle all of this, no friggin' problem. And it just eats the magic.
Yeah.
It's like the guy they're fighting is just like, what? He can just do that?
You can do that? Uh-oh.
No, that's probably the biggest complaint I had about the movie, was the way the hand kept ruining a lot of the scenes. But
I mean, I think other characters did it too. Like the mercenary characters kind of tended to yammer at each other a lot more than they needed to as well.
Yeah, they had much better dialogue in the English translation of the book. Definitely. Yeah. Layla was a very good character in the book, and her and Dee had a pretty cool little back and forth throughout the whole story. She had a great design in the movie. The design of her character in that movie is probably the best artwork for a character in that movie. And there's some really good ones. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, the character designs in general were unique and colorful and detailed and fitting. So I mean, while I could have made some minor nitpicks about certain aesthetic choices, it was clear that everything had been done for a reason.
Yeah, and I don't know who played the goofy shadow dude, but he sounded a lot like Mark Hamill. Like the way Mark Hamill does the Joker's voice in Batman.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I have no idea.
I should have looked that up. I'm going to look it up and not say anything about it.
Okay.
But anyway, otherwise, I remember watching the movie, and at the time, I had thought that it wasn't as good as the first movie.
Yeah.
And when we started talking about how we need to go back and watch it, I was thinking about it, and I was like, a lot of people really give this movie praise. Was it actually better than the original movie? Am I just remembering wrong? But when we finally watched it, I remembered why I thought the first movie was better. There was, even though they cut a lot out from the books in the first movie, and there's definitely things that went unexplained, just like in Bloodlust.
I mean, a little bit of mystery is fine.
Yeah, but it's overall, I think the first movie it got through one story much better than the second movie did.
I think that the first movie had a lot more coherent world building.
Yeah, definitely.
There's clearly a lot missing, right? As you've mentioned, there's a lot of contents that are like world building elements that are in the books that aren't in the movies just by sheer inability to cram it all in there.
Yeah, and they tried.
Sometimes they tried. Sometimes they just gave up and said, screw it.
There's the scene in the first movie where they're on the farm, and there's like a weird ghost thing that attacks. They explain what's going on with that a lot better.
That's what I mean. I'm referring to the first movie did a very good job of at least trying to have the world building be relatively coherent while still cutting out a lot. I felt like the world building that was cut was a lot more slapdash in Bloodlust.
Definitely.
Like when Dee digs a hole and lays down in a hole, and it's like, is that because of the heat thing, or is this something we were supposed to know about? Is this something that's in vampire lore that I'm just not aware of? No, I mean, he just digs a hole.
Apart from the whole sleeping in dirt of the homeland thing, which that's not his homeland as far as I know.
That's not his homeland, so that's not a relevant point. He was inside the bowl of a tree. I don't understand why that was a necessary element of that. But
so that Layla could be out of the rain.
I mean, I guess that makes some sense. It's a little contrived.
Maybe a little. I think it got like a slightly better explanation in the book, but I think even in the book it didn't really go over why he had to do that.
Oh,
very
okay,
well.
then.
But the books are kind of like that, where occasionally they'll show some kind of weakness that he has, but then you don't see it again.
Which is a little silly sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that they could have focused on a bit better, that they probably had to cut for time, was the mutants.
Yeah.
Closer to the end of the book, Dee has to go to the mutant village. I forget the name of it already.
Oh, it was some goofy name, yeah.
Yeah, Baloney or something.
Yeah, Baloney. We'll call it Baloney.
Yeah. So he goes to Baloney, and he's basically in the book looking to parlay with the people of that town to let him chase after the vampire. The vampire is under the protection of the townspeople because they've never had a problem with the vampires, and the vampires have never really had a problem with them, so they protect
they pay
the
well
vampires.
too. So
yeah, they pay well. So they protect the vampires, and I think there's a couple of people that Dee like makes bargains with that don't really go anywhere in the book. I can't remember, but it is those three that end up protecting the vampire as they take off from the town, and it's for the same reasons. The town essentially does say, "Yeah, we're not going to let you do anything. We're protecting them." So Dee has to chase them out of town, and the fights between each of the monsters is a little more in depth in the books, as you could expect. But the one that really got me was that last one where all we got was the mutant dying and saying, "Oh, that was a good fight." It's like, wait, so that all happened off camera? We don't get any of that? That one was a weird one. That was like the anticlimax moment of the movie.
Yeah. It was funny because we just cut to a scene, like, we cut from an unrelated scene to the scene of Dee having already cut the dude through the center. And then, like, he's like this really cool kind of, like werewolf dude with a werewolf stomach. And, like, he just dies. And we're like, what?
Yeah. I wonder if maybe I'm remembering wrong and the book didn't have much more than that in it as well. Like, maybe I'm remembering wrong and a chapter opened up and it was just Dee defeating the werewolf, but I don't think that's what happened, because they kind of made a big deal about all the fights in that book.
Yeah, well, I mean, this, from what you've told me about the books, and I haven't read them, but it sounds like it's trying to be an action series, right?
It's very much like Solomon Kane. It's a little more action, and the supernatural stuff is there, and it's kind of cool when it's talked about, but most of it is used for world building.
So my argument is this: if the goal of the author was to make an action book, it's highly unlikely that he would deliberately avoid action in a large way. So my suspicion is that, not having read it, is that there should be more in the book. That's the purpose of the book.
I'm pretty sure there was.
Show cool action fights.
Yeah, since I can't remember, I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure there was. There's also the question of, like, I forgot how that story ended. I know that it ended more with a battle between the vampire and Dee.
Yeah.
And I think, because we had that whole Carmilla thing at the end. That didn't happen in the book. The entire ending of that was this other vampire that had a castle where she had a rocket ship that was going to take the vampire and his human lover to space where they could live happily. And throughout the story, the vampire is... supposedly the vampire and the human girl are in love. At least the girl claims, and the vampire claims as well, but they do kind of show the vampire having to resist the urge to bite her neck in a couple scenes.
Yeah.
And I believe that the way it wrapped up in the book was that the girl decided she wanted to be a vampire to be with him forever, and he was about to give in, and then Dee steps in, and then whatever happened after that I can't really remember. But this Carmilla thing was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to send you two up to, like, Mars or something in a rocket, and she's using it as a trick. She's actually going to kill the vampire and the girl for reasons that I don't understand. And
the
did they
girl's
explain
blood
that?
was going to revive her, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, the girl's blood was going to revive her, but was there? Why did she have to kill the vampire? Was it just because he would be
because
angry?
the vampire wouldn't let he wouldn't let her kill the girl if he was still up and about.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Right, because basically there's this fight where the vampire gets cut in half, and the implication is that he's dead. And then Carmilla goes along with the rest of her plan, and draws a bunch of blood out of the girl, and starts to use that to revive herself, because she's not really she's a ghost that wants to be a vampire again, and so she needs blood. And then, yeah, it's a little weird, but yeah, I think that's what happened. I think that's what that was supposed to mean.
It feels really tacked on. It's possible.
It is tacked on. I mean, the idea of adding a plot point of them having a goal of where they're going and go there for a reason is a good one. But at the same time, the execution was, I think, subpar at best.
Well, there is one thing bothering me, though, because I remember reading the prologue, not the prologue, the foreword for the first 3 novels.
Yeah.
And it described that omnibus as having the story that the first movie was based off of, which is the first book.
Right.
And it also had the story which the second movie was based off of, but it was like a mix of that and something else. So it's possible that the website that I was reading from is wrong, and that Carmilla is actually a character somewhere in the later books, and that they just really wanted to use So I imagine what happened if Carmilla was actually in the books is that story was a decent story, but Carmilla was a really good character, and they just really wanted to have a movie with Carmilla, but they decided to go with one that had a better story and tack her on, which
I could believe that. I mean, they picked a good one. Like her being added on makes sense in a way, right? Like you have this vampire who has a human lover, and he doesn't want to kill her, and he doesn't want to be constantly on the run for the rest of eternity, or at least the rest of her life. And so the goal is to go somewhere where they can be together without having anyone, to stop them. And, tacking on the Carmilla Starship subplot is, I think, at least a reasonable, goal for them to have.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what threw me off, is because I forgot most of what happened in Bloodlust.
Sure.
Also, I feel like there were scenes missing. Like, I remember watching it, and when they got to the castle at the end, I seem to recall that there were some monsters towards the start of that part of the story in the castle that Dee had to fight before he could make his way
in the book
Carmilla.
Or in the movie?
In the movie.
Oh, okay.
But I might be mixing it up with something I saw in the first movie and just getting that wrong. I don't know.
I mean, there were those very crazy looking monsters in the first movie where Dee first walks into the castle, and those things all try to surround him at once, and he has to kind of push through them really quickly.
Yeah, I may be getting it mixed up with that scene.
Maybe. I mean, I didn't find any evidence to suggest that they had tacked on more scenes later on, right?
Because we looked for
anything that I read. Yeah. So my guess is that you might be thinking of some scenes from the first one that kind of fit, but
yeah,
I mean, it's possible that there was some kind of director's cut that came out that you got a hold of or something like that. I don't know.
Well, whatever it was a friend of ours that had the copy that we watched, so that's what it boils down to. But taking the movie as it stands, Carmilla kind of feeling tacked on at the end, and just kind of forgetting about that small little point. The movie overall is a fun watch.
Sure.
And it has a lot of fun scenes in it. You always have the characters that are like the human characters were really good mercenaries in the book, and they kind of show that in this story, but they're a little bit out of their depth. Because Layla has that fight where she barely survives against one of the mutants, and it's not really a fight. Like
they all get beaten really easily, one by one, kind of thing.
Yeah.
For the most part, there are 5 mercenaries. One of them is a bedridden guy who has spirit powers if he takes a certain drug, and that was kind of cool. I like that part for sure. There was a dude with a big hammer who overextended and was really easily taken out. There was a dude with these like very unwieldy spinning knife things, like cross-shaped spinning knives that also got killed really, really easily, despite being, very agile and confident. I mean, the mercenaries were. The mercenaries could have been a more interesting part of that movie, is what I'll say.
To be fair, they did show a lot of what happened with the mercenaries in the book that I can remember. I mean, there were scenes that they shortened. Like I believe there was a scene where they were just surrounded by ghouls. And Marcus, I believe, the guy with the crossbow, he's like the older brother of the group. They're all supposed to be related.
Right. Yeah.
And he's just battling all these ghouls and having a good old time doing it before they end up having to fall back. And it's just like they kind of show that in a few scenes where they're fighting, like at the beginning, where they're fighting all those zombies.
Right.
Or whatever they are. And Layla was also decent at her job, but she was the weakest of the crew, I guess. And there ended up being a little bit more between her and Marcus, where she kind of runs off and her and Marcus have a bit of a tiff, and I think it's the brother that's bedridden that has to end up coming between them and stopping that fight.
Okay.
And it's a bit jumbled in my head, but the book is worth reading, so ignore my incoherency and go
read the book.
Read it.
Yeah.
The first omnibus. It's the third. It might be the second story. It's either the second or third.
I mean, the thing I read said it was the third story in the first omnibus, but I guess I don't know yet. I picked up the first omnibus, and I'm going to give it a read, but I haven't read it yet. So
yeah, you will see right away what I'm talking about when I say that it's very Solomon Kane.
Yeah.
And, it's partly because of the world that they're in, which is very bleak, like the world of Solomon Kane, and has a lot of different locations in it. But it's mostly because D and Solomon Kane are practically interchangeable in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean,
personality-wise, the only difference is that, D, when he attacks something with fervor, it's because of the vampire part of him, whereas when Solomon Kane does it, it's out of being a Puritan and being puritanical.
Yeah.
And the whole iron will to do the job he thinks he needs to do.
Sure.
But like if you ever read that story with Solomon Kane fighting the giant flying pterodactyl creatures,
yeah,
very much like a Vampire Hunter D monster fight.
Sure,
in one
a little less supernatural, but yeah.
Yeah, well, in that case, kind of supernatural-ish. No superpowers, though. Very few Solomon Kane stories where you have like overly mystical superpowers. It's usually
I mean, Vampire Hunter D is kind of like the Super Saiyan version of Solomon Kane.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it.
All the physical power and physical capabilities are dialed up to 11. Which makes sense because it's more of an action story than an adventure story. And so you want that action to be over the top and flamboyant and fantastic.
Yeah, and looking at it another way, the Solomon Kane stories are, because they're more subtle with their mysticism and any magic that does happen, it kind of makes it more important when it does happen, whereas a lot of people in the Vampire Hunter D novels just straight up have superpowers.
Yes.
It's a great little world that they built, and I don't think the movie does enough to really show what the vampire society, the influence that it had on the current situation everyone's in.
Sure.
Because a lot of the books discuss the experiments that the vampires were doing on various creatures to create monsters and fortify their civilizations.
Yeah, I mean, that all makes sense. I mean, it's very hard to fit, especially in a movie that's going to be an action movie, it's very hard to fit a lot of like pure exposition in there.
Yeah, but I mean, it works. The movie's good. The first movie's good. The second movie's good. They're both worth watching. At the very least, if you like vampire movies, they're probably my favorite vampire movies overall.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think if because I got some that I really like. Like I really liked the first 30 Days of Night movie. What was the other one? There was another. I think the second Underworld movie was pretty good.
Okay.
Or maybe it was the one where they actually showed the past, where the vampires were, they had a society. But it's kind of like a lot of people thought that Castlevania was just the greatest thing when it came out on Netflix, and a lot of people did like the first season. I know that I heard enough about the second season that, having been disappointed by the first season, I just wasn't going to finish it. But even the first season of Castlevania, which had its moments, it didn't compare to the Vampire Hunter D movies. Those are the definitive vampire anime, unless you maybe are more of a fan of Hellsing. Then you could definitely swap those two for first place.
I mean, they're very different. They're very different movies, right? Like,
yeah.
Vampire Hunter D is artsy, where like Hellsing, especially Hellsing Ultimate, is grounded and but like explosive. I don't know. Well, those aren't the right words. What am I trying to say here? There's a certain like tranquility to Vampire Hunter D that doesn't exist in Hellsing.
You get much more of a sense that you're living in a world that is on the cusp of falling apart in the Vampire Hunter D movies, whereas Hellsing is there's really not much more to say about it other than, oh, it's a cool action vampire story.
It is the action vampire story par excellence. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people like, because obviously Hellsing Ultimate is, that's where we kind of peaked out with Hellsing, but the original anime, I loved it up until the last 2 episodes. That's where I thought it was kind of dumb, but everything up until then I thought was great.
The TV series was good. It they took a bunch of liberties with the comic, but it's its own thing.
Yeah, you can kind of look at it as separate from Hellsing Ultimate.
I mean, Hellsing Ultimate is great just because of the incredibly over the top, like, gore and action that are just so much, just so like from a visual sense, they're loud. I don't know how to describe it, but they're.
Oh, I don't know. Nothing. There are very few scenes that I have seen in anything ever that were as cool as the scene where Alexander Anderson saves Integra from the zombie Nazis.
Yeah.
Or the vampire Nazis. When he just drops down in front of her and then slowly rises up. That was done by a group of people that knew exactly how to make everyone watching feel like, oh man, things are about to go down now.
Yeah.
I think that if you really want to say that it counts, you could also add the Hellsing Ultimate abridged version into the amazing works of vampire lore, but...
I mean, yeah, I guess. I haven't seen it, but...
Oh, you haven't watched that? Oh, okay, well, we have a project.
Yeah. I've seen a couple bits and pieces.
Yeah, we definitely have a project then. You don't know what you're missing.
I guess.
Yeah, so yeah, but getting back to Vampire Hunter D, just like, we think that it looks good visually, right?
I mean, visually it is one of the... were they still doing pretty much all hand-drawn back then, or were they starting to use CG significantly?
There was, I believe there was some CG for, like, the carriages and some of the laser things. They were just introducing it around then. Okay. And it was getting better around then, because I remember watching Blue Submarine 6 and I was like, this is not good.
Yeah.
They need to not do CG for this stuff. And they kind of got a little better. They moved into doing things that were simpler to handle, like Initial D with the cars.
Right.
But, if they're... I'm pretty sure some of those carriage scenes were CG. I may be wrong. It may just be really, really good hand animation.
I mean, I don't necessarily mean using the CG to make... Because back then, CG models were too simple to look good in anime. Like, yeah.
Like, you mean using digital artwork for the...
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, like, using... Yeah.
I would guess that they probably did at that period of time, but I'm not sure. We know that the original one was all hand-drawn, and
right.
It's one of the most beautiful hand-drawn movies there is. you got to really go to like Disney or Studio Ghibli to get movies that are better than
Even a
that.
lot of the Ghibli stuff, while really nice looking, is not as like
Artistically
breathtakingly
interesting,
beautiful. Yeah, as like I mean, Castle of Cagliostro is a fantastic looking movie, but it pales in comparison visually to Vampire Hunter D, just from the sheer amount of like, because anime can look cartoony, but anime can also like strive for like an almost realistic look, and the first Vampire Hunter D movie really nails that.
It
And the second one does too. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't just nail it. It because of the world of Vampire Hunter D, the art style like has atmosphere to it. It kind of draws you into what it is. Whereas watching the Castle of Cagliostro, there's not really an atmosphere that you're drawn into in that movie. It's just
I mean, I would say
here's
that
the castle.
I would say that that's not necessarily true. There's
Not
a lot of
necessarily,
atmosphere
but like you know, you get a sense of the time periods that everything is taking place.
No, but I mean, like
you get
things in Castle of Cagliostro, or even Nausicaa. Nausicaa is a little closer to Vampire Hunter D in terms of like making things look detailed. But like a lot of the Studio Ghibli stuff is actually pretty simple. You know, like the animation is very smooth and it's very imaginative, but like there's a lot of like, oh, this thing is a large black blob that has a cool shape that changes over time, but it is still a black blob, right? Yeah. Whereas like, you know, you can practically feel the texture of things in Vampire Hunter D. They're drawn with such attention to detail.
And I mean, for as good as the second one looks, there's also the first movie, just especially for the time, it was very pleasing visually.
Yeah.
And it has its, you know, it also has its very unique art style compared to a lot of things that came out at that time, just because of
that's true. Yeah.
Who the artist was for the book covers. They tried to capture, you know, a little bit of his style in the movies. And they definitely pay a lot of attention to the differences in features of characters. Like everyone's not just a very similar facial structure. Everyone is
right. They're
unique.
all very different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nobody has a silhouette like anybody else in the movie.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. You could take the silhouette of a character.
You could never do which Pokemon is this with that.
Yeah, and you know that was kind of a staple of a lot of the anime that, like, many people might not remember these days, but around that time period, there were lots of anime that had characters with a lot of varying features instead of just drawing everyone to look similar. I mean, it's really bad now. Where you have characters that they might seem a bit different, but if you really judge the way their faces look, it's like, oh, if you took away their hair, I wouldn't know if that was a boy or a girl. Mm-hmm. A lot of the, what's the one I'm thinking of? Maybe like Grand Crest War had characters in it that had very, like the guys had very feminine features for the most part. And
there's a certain school of Japanese animation that does that.
Yeah. Whereas we had things like Yododen back in the day where the characters had a lot of different body structure and their part of their characterization was that they actually looked different from everyone else.
Right.
And it's one of the things that when people look at some of the older stuff that didn't necessarily have the best stories, it nonetheless makes it worth watching and makes it fun to watch because it's so different from everything else, where maybe something has a better story, but the artwork for the characters is not anything special.
I mean, there's value in watching stuff just because of the character designs. Like, you know, I mean, you can have something that has a completely nonsensical story, but like, you know, oh wow, they did this with that, and they did that with that, and these characters look like this, and a lot of artistic. I mean, that's one of the merits of a visual medium is that you have more places to express that.
Well, I mean, that's why Robot Carnival exists.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we do manage to keep slipping further and further away from the movie here, but
and the writing, yeah, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, it is okay. It's.
This isn't a movie. You know, to be honest, the writing of this movie is not great, especially the English version. Like,
right,
the dialogue is kind of screwy. There's a lot of missing world building details. Some of the fights happen off camera. Like from a writing perspective, I think I would criticize this movie a lot.
And compared to the first
that,
movie, it's got a lot more
yes.
downtime, I'd say. Like, there's a few scenes where it's like, okay, let's...
Yeah. Downtime, and in addition to downtime, a lot of, like dangling ends, whether they be beginning ends or ending ends.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this just doesn't... We don't see that. Some of... The overall arc of the story, the overall arc of the plot is, I think, good. I think tacking on Carmilla even works pretty well with the plot as it was. The problem is that it's so compressed that you lose a lot of that world building that is present in the book.
Yeah,
so.
there was a very big story to tell there, and they had to like sluice out a lot of it, and a lot of what they sluiced out was really good.
Right. Which, I mean, to some degree, that means that the stuff that was left was even better in a lot of cases, but at the same time, you feel like it doesn't feel as like a coherent world, as a very coherent world, as opposed to like, this is a world where there are random cool things, and we're going to show you a few of them. It's imaginative, but not especially like coherent.
Well, I think one of the big reasons that the first movie was better is that it had something to work with in terms of building the character of both Dee and Dorothy as the story went along. And it also had one of the villains that had a lot of character to her because of the whole jealousy angle in the story. So there's three characters at the very least that had a bit of something to look forward to throughout the story. Whereas in this one, it kind of feels like the people who made it are assuming that you already have a pretty good idea of Dee's character. He doesn't really get too much character building in the story. You get that one moment where the guy with the horse that he's selling gives you a bit of background on what kind of character Dee has. And apart from that, there's not really that much. You get like a glimpse or two of Dee showing that he actually cares about people on occasion, but not much more than that. And as far as Layla goes, I don't think they really had enough of her character in the story either. You kind of saw...
Yeah, I agree. She kind of... Yeah,
you saw her story coming a mile away, when it got to the end of the movie, and it's like, maybe we should just stop killing each other. But it also felt like they missed all the important things that made that make sense for her to conclude. Like, I don't know if you felt that way, but I remember I was watching it and I was just like, wait, did anything happen that would actually cause her to feel this way? All she did was see that the vampire and the girl actually love each other, but she didn't care about that for the whole movie. So she had to like physically be there and see that they liked each other for it to matter. But before that, she could have assumed the same, and it didn't matter.
Well, I mean, maybe it's one of those things where even if she, even if a person were there to see that wouldn't necessarily change an entire lifetime's worth of prejudice. They'd be like,
yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, we know that one of the vampire's powers is to mind control people. So like, let's be honest here. What are the chances?
Yeah. It's just like out of nowhere, she's suddenly like, why can't we be friends?
Yeah.
Apart from that, though, I mean, it's like there was enough character building. Marcus was... a bit of his character was just demonstrated in the fact that he's going for the gold and he's going to fight his way there. He didn't back down from anything.
There was some interestingness in their interaction with Dee. Because there was that cool conflict where they're like, should we fight Dee or should we let him win the prize and then we take it from him after he's weakened, kind of thing? Or, maybe we can actually collaborate, kind of thing. There was a lot of I think, interesting tidbits there. Nothing too like intensely developed, but there was enough where you're like, okay, this is moderately interesting. What are they going to do? Are they going to go along with the more aggressive path, or are they going to kind of help out, or what? So that kept me interested, at least.
Yeah, the ways that the characters behave in terms of Dee in the stories is a lot like that. You always get like each story has a different way that the characters approach and handle D, whether he's a friend or foe.
Yeah.
And I just, maybe as a bit of more of a side note, talking about Layla, she was a little bit dumb in the book too. She was a cool character in the book. One thing I didn't understand towards the end, when she took the ring and she was going to run off and be like, yeah, I'm getting the bounty for this, and she's like, she's kind of acting like, hey, yeah, I let you do all the work, and now business is business. I'm taking off and I'm going to claim the prize. By that time in the movie, what in the world was she thinking that she was going? Like, what was going through her mind that made her think that, yeah, I can totally pull this one out from under D at that point?
Yeah.
There was like no reason for the D he was not restricted in any way at that moment. And it was just like, yeah, this is mine now. And it's just like, he'll kill you. What are you talking about? You would not be able to stop him. There is nothing in this entire movie that is implied that you would be able to do anything about it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That might have been her dumbest moment in the movie. But apart from that, I mean, good character design, voiced by Megumi Hayashibara in the Japanese version, apparently.
Yes.
And it was kind of that was the real fun of the movie for the most part, was her interactions with D were the only real big story throughout the movie. The rest was just a chase that you didn't get to see much of.
Well, you get to see parts of it, but I mean, like,
I'm kind of comparing to the book though in my head, so it's a little bit difficult.
That's fair.
Because there were a lot more scenes where like D was up against the carriage chasing the vampire, and the vampire had a bunch of tricks to slow D down. And D's got he's got one of the mechanical horses, which is incredibly fast, but so did the vampire.
Right.
And he ends up pulling a fast one that kind of tricks D into veering off course in the book. And so, you get whole scenes like that throughout the book. Whereas in the movie, you got that one scene where D managed to jump on the back of the carriage and then was immediately thrown off.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like we're nitpicking and complaining a lot, but I mean, the movie's great. It's not like this is a bad movie. We're just looking at it from a bit of a writing angle here, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the writing is the writing is probably one of the weaker elements of it, but like visually, world building. Well, not world. I mean, I don't know. There's
some world building in there.
There's some world building, but it's got so many holes in it that it's hard to keep it together.
But it does what the first movie does pretty well too. It does that whole thing where you get a good sense of how dark the world is and how dangerous a place it is to live in, just from where they travel and the things they run into when they travel.
Well, I think that the first movie did a really good job of making the world feel like whole, like it was a thing. Yeah. Whereas this one kind of felt more like a best of compilation, where it's like, why are these sand manta rays here? What do they do? Why are they hostile? Why didn't you just wait for them to pass before you decided to go across the desert? I don't know, but they sure do look cool.
I mean, they must have really wanted to draw those because they put a lot of effort into it.
That's perfectly understandable. Yeah,
but they look
really cool. Yeah, it was a really cool scene, but like you know.
That scene could have been
I feel like that school of manta rays could not be infinitely long, and so you just wait for them to go, and then you just walk across the desert. It's not really that hard. Instead, what we get is this crazy scene where D is like jumping up and not flying, but like gliding and jumping across these things, and just barely avoids getting eaten by one of them, kind of thing. It's like unless the whole desert is just swarming with these things, there's got to be a point where they're not crossing that particular area. Especially if they school, like they clearly were. I don't know. I'm nitpicking.
It didn't
but
offer
at the same
much
time,
to the story, essentially.
I mean, like if I like, I don't know. I haven't seen the first one in a year or two. I think I bought it, and I watched it once, and then I put it back on the shelf. But like that one felt like, yeah, I can believe that this part of this world is connected to this part of this world, which is connected to this part of this world. Whereas it's like, I don't know, forest, castle, desert. Good luck.
Space. The books do. If you read even one of the stories, you already have a good sense of how it all fits together a bit better. So I'm kind of, I've got that lens on it when I watch the movie, so it doesn't,
and that makes sense. Yeah,
it doesn't quite feel as loosely connected to me, but I get that, watching it, a lot of it just kind of might feel disjointed. Like they get to the rocket ship thing, and they've prepared you for that by the end of the first book. If someone said, "Oh, they also have rockets where they go to Mars, and there's cities on Mars for the vampires," by the end of the first book, you're fully ready for that because you've already seen how vampire technology plays a big role in everything.
Yeah. So, whereas this one, they don't even say where the. It's kind of funny because it's like, I don't know if this spaceship's going to work. Also, it goes to. They had like a name for the place, like the something
City
of
the
Night
Stars or something.
City of the Stars, yeah. And it's like, they don't say it's on the moon or on Mars or anything like that. They're just like, yep, there's a City of the Stars. And they even imply that it might be abandoned. And so it's like. It's like in the movie, they're just like getting on this spaceship on like this weird lovers pact, suicide pact that is going to put them on this spaceship whether it gets them somewhere or not.
Yeah,
it's just like I don't know. It's going to be very hard for this medieval woman to survive a 4-month trip to Mars
and then be surrounded by vampires.
Yeah.
I do think it is Mars, though. I think it said somewhere in the first book that the vampires have civilization.
I agree, it's in
Mars.
the book. I'm sure it's on the book, but like in the movie, they don't say where.
But I think it did.
I feel like you wouldn't have pulled that out of nowhere if it wasn't somewhere in the book. But
well, I could have been reading something else at the time that also mentioned Mars and space travel.
Vampires on Mars.
Well, not vampires on Mars, but like, I read things in a very on and off manner sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I vaguely remember some reference, I think it was in the first book, to how the vampires, their numbers had dwindled and many of them had gone off into space and there was a colony of them on Mars or something.
I mean, I would totally believe that.
But they definitely did go to space, and this movie portrays that. So,
well, sort of. The spaceship doesn't work.
Well, they did show that brief scene of like not like an actual scene of anything, but like a sort of an exposition dump where they showed spaceships in the sky that belonged to the vampires.
I guess so, yeah. Anyway. I don't know. Anything else we want to talk about with this one?
Just the strange fact that, well, I mean, the vampires don't have to wear any suits because they don't have to breathe in space, but then it's like, well, wait a minute, but wouldn't the blood still, like, pump out of their body? Or whatever?
I mean, yes, they would boil, yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're still used to atmospheric pressure.
Yeah. Well, no, they can turn to mist, though, so they would just sort of, like, get sucked out of the airlock and evaporate in space or something.
Well, that would be even worse.
I mean, yes. Because they're still alive when that happens.
Yeah.
Better hope they find a gravity well or something.
Well, I mean, it's not going to help. The mist is going to go in all directions, and they're going to be like one atom of a mist. It's like, a light year from every other atom of the mist.
The universe recondenses into a single point, and then the vampire finally pops back into existence, and he's just like, "Oh, I weigh a lot goodness. Now."
Yeah,
it just sort of crumples up.
Well, like if the universe collapsed back onto a single point, then the temperature would be such that the black body radiation would be far shorter than ultraviolet, so they would instantly be killed by the
good point.
High frequency radiation, assumedly, but I don't know.
That's a pretty interesting addition to vampire lore, I guess.
They can't survive the Big Bang.
Yeah, not that many things can.
They're like primordial black holes.
The universe is made of vampires.
That's the next journal article that I should write. Primordial black holes, actually vampires? ?
Picture of Urzgelda vomiting into a bucket.
Figure 1.
Our first example. All right. Well, did we? Without spoiling too much of the movie, I think we gave people enough of a reason to watch
I mean, it's
or
one
not
of those
watch.
movies where we have talked a lot about a lot of the things that happened in the plot, but it's one of those movies also where like
You just got to kind of see
fun
it.
is in getting there, and like seeing all the cool stuff. Like you can look at the Mona Lisa on Google, but there is something to be said about actually going, where is it, in the Louvre, and seeing it for yourself, kind of thing. So
yeah, I think
where's
it's in
the
the
look?
Louvre still.
I think so. So yeah, I mean, good movie. I mean, it's a good seed crystal for like wanting to go look at the books too, because like if you feel like the world building is too slapdash or haphazard or disjointed in the movie, then you'll at least get more of it in the book. And from what you've said, it sounds like it makes a lot more sense with that context. So
yeah, very much.
Good place to get started on reading some good books, some good action stories.
Yeah, so we can
action stories that are in the vein of Solomon Kane. So like this has kind of got everything going for it, right? It's like, oh, what do you mean? It's like Solomon Kane, but it's with supernatural vampires in a crazy future world. Why wouldn't I read that? I'll read that. Yeah, of course.
And the fact that we can use this as a platform to push people to read some more books just vindicates the idea that we are somehow a writing podcast.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm cool with that.
That's what I'm here to do in the last 4 minutes of the hour podcast, is to vindicate us being about writing.
We are not an anime review podcast at all. We are a writing podcast. So
we've only done anime reviews for like 3 or 4 episodes out of 70, which still sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad.
Yeah. I guess.
What would you rather have us do? Plug the good guy again? Come on.
Look. There is a book that needs no plugging. Except it needs a lot, actually.
Yeah, all of our books need
plugging.
That Jay Please Sherman, buy our books.
Give me that Jay Sherman standee and just
exactly
put it on repeat, which I guess it was automatically on. It's worth noting that we probably missed a golden opportunity with Vampire Hunter D. Apparently back in 2016 or 17, I think? Where
I don't know,
they were planning on doing a television series, an animated television series of Vampire Hunter D, and I feel like if they had done that, especially in that time period, well, no, I mean, it might have been in talks in 2017. I think they were going to do it in like 2020 or something. COVID put the kibosh on that, so that was a no-go. But I feel like if it had happened, we would have had a much more rich display of the lore of the world of Vampire Hunter D.
Maybe not. Who knows?
Well, I mean, when they release anime at this point, there's a lot higher budgets for a lot of them, and I don't think that Vampire Hunter D would have been one of the low budget ones. My only concern would be if it was being presented by Netflix. Then I would be worried, but it didn't sound like that was going to be the case. They had the original director. I would be worried that they
wouldn't hire the proper artists to actually pull off the visual style. I'd be worried that they would just they would do a season where like 4 episodes is a book, and then they just do 3 books, and they don't do any actual world building, but it's just kind of like a best of. There's a lot of things to worry about in turning Vampire Hunter D into a TV series.
Well, they could probably pick one of the better stories and make it a 12-episode anime.
Sure, they could.
And that
would
they would. I mean, I would hope that if they took that approach, they would do that, and that would definitely catch a lot of the world building.
Would you like it if they did that?
I wouldn't mind, because it would be more Vampire Hunter.
And what happens to things that you like?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
I see what you did there.
So with that, we will call this an episode.
God, it's a good thing.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair podcast. As always, I'm Rudy.
And I exist as Justin.
You exist as a way for things that are good to be destroyed.
Yeah, it's a really good thing I don't like our podcast. Otherwise, we'd be screwed.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's at Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, at Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.